good to have you here on this Wednesday night. It's Hump Day, September 24th, 2025, and the trans boyfriend is on the run. The roommate is on the run. Nobody knows where the boyfriend roommate is. Oh, there's so much. There's so many things. Oh, darn it. Lauren just texted me. Is this garbage bag in the hallway meant to go out? Yes. Yes, it absolutely is, darling. I completely forgot to carry it out with me. Can you please bring it to the black garbage can? Question mark. Whoops. I just left garbage in the hallway. I put on my shoes and I walked right out. And I carried the garbage down with me. I carried the garbage down with me. Okay, so I went down the stairs with the garbage. I put it down, put my shoes on, stood up, and walked right out. So, I'm sorry, Lauren. Thank you for picking up the slack, though. Okay. Anyway, welcome to the show. Rich Baris is going to be on with us in a little bit. I want to talk to him about, this is why I had him on the schedule for a while for tonight, because I wanted to talk to him about all of the work he had done into supernatural and paranormal topics, most notably near-death experiences, because we were going to do a little bit the night before, and we got this. It was kind of like a back-to-back thing, one side or the other. Well, he'll be on the first half to talk about that. I'm sure other things will slip in, like this YouTube thing. I want to ask him about what he thinks about the YouTube reinstatements going on. And I don't know. And I don't know what the hell's going on in this room right now. I saw a couple people. I don't know what's going on with the brightness on the screen. Absolutely nothing in front of me has changed. There's nothing going on. Nothing has changed. No setting has changed. So I see how things on the screen are a lot more brilliant, and I don't know why. So don't get your panties in a bunch. Daddy will figure it out. Nothing has changed in this room. Anyway, that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And and the funny thing is about the lighting is that I actually bought these new, because I wanted to eliminate the desk lights over here. And I got a very, very nice professional small little box light that I'm going to be able to get right there and finally get some even lighting on the face instead of this ground up lighting, this grotesque ground up lighting. You know, I wanted to try to even it out a little bit and eliminate some stuff, so I actually made a purchase last night for Studio B and Studio A. I think you guys are going to be very impressed with how cleaned up the video of Studio B is going to be for those nights that I retreat there for, inclement weather or any other reason why I usually do that. I would like to call attention to one other thing, since Rich is going to be on soon and we don't have much of a grab bag. We'll do a little bit of that later on, including this latest from James O'Keefe, who was a senior DOJ Epstein investigator, revealing that Epstein was, in fact, CIA. That's what we have now out of James O'Keefe. Maybe we'll be able to listen to that a little bit in the second half. But in the meantime, I want to let you guys know this. I have a new thread up on the forum, and it is for this year's Creepy, Spooky, Unexplained Stories 2025 thread. So I want to start sprinkling these in. We're also going to have some nights that are dedicated to it. I want to know, you have true haunting stories, or have you been pursued by non-human entities through the woods, through an empty hospital? I don't know what the hell it is. You have a heart-racing encounter working the graveyard shift at any job that still has never been adequately explained to you. Well, go ahead and blow all of our minds. It's that time of year again, and I want to compile as many spooky stories as possible to be trickled and sprinkled into the show throughout the fall. So that's Quite Frankly.tv, the forum. I have this stuck to the top of the forum. I tweeted it out. I put it out on Telegram, put it out in the Discord. If you don't know where to find any of those and you need a little help, you can email me, and I'll give you the link. And if you are just completely disabled, in your attempts to do this thing, you can't figure it out at all, then you can even just send me the nicely concise story and I'll put it in for you. But I want to get at least a dozen or so really good stories in this thread. Go ahead and do it. Can't wait to start reading through them. All right. Other than that, boy, oh boy, tomorrow night with Jay Gulanello is going to be funny, especially since we have things like this to look through. What pregnant people should know about acetaminophen. Pregnant people, you say? So this is on CNN, by the way. So just imagine having to kind of pick through all of the nonsense and take these ridiculous petty sides, the ridiculous petty, sides on these petty little arguments and all that stuff, to just be petulant little contrarian children on anything and everything that Donald Trump and people in his administration stick to, that now you have pregnant liberal women going out there and popping 2-3 capsules of Tylenol at a time in front of their cameras and putting them on TikTok and all that stuff to show what little fucking badasses they are. Little fucking rebels taking some acetaminophen and swollen with child. Little fucking rebel. I'm a fucking rebel over here. I'm gonna take the whole fucking bottle. Yeah. Good Lord. Good Lord. The children have not even escaped the womb yet. And they're already paying the consequences for having crazy mothers. Haven't even escaped the womb yet. But then again, thankfully, they were designated as children by these women. You know? As we know, these women could have said, "It is not a child. Goodbye." And could have been gone. Probably could have taken a whole bottle. Never mind. Okay, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to take a really quick intro break and bring Rich Baris on the other side, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about all the things, including this YouTube thing. I'll save that for the other side of the intro. Don't go anywhere. It all starts now. Whoops.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
That's right. You know what happened? I went to go click on my camera source, and I clicked on the camera instead of going to a preview mode and trying to bring down the temperature. What is it? It's probably the ISO, but I don't get why that would happen. I don't know why that would happen to me right now. Elgato Facecam Pro. Center way. I don't want to do this with you guys on the air, but I mean, I'm curious as to what could have happened. What on earth could have happened? But I'll do that. I'll do that a little bit. As long as you can hear me and you can see me decently, then whatever. All right. So here is a little bit of the news that we got yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but Google wanted to let everyone know that removed users from the COVID-19 days can rejoin YouTube. And it is in part to kind of reverse all of the very bad things that were foisted upon YouTube by the last administration. You ready for a little bit of this? This will be something. Google says that removed users from COVID-19, they can join YouTube again. They removed over their views concerning COVID-19 and 2020 election can rejoin the service, Google and its parent company Alphabet said in its September 23rd letter. Rules in place prohibiting some discussion of COVID-19 in the election were lifted. Here's the thing. Here's the quote. Today's YouTube community guidelines allow for a wider range of content regarding COVID-19 and election integrity. So remember, you couldn't talk about the election, which of course is directly linked to COVID-19 because we didn't get that election without COVID-19. So essentially you couldn't connect dots. You weren't allowed to connect dots. Reflecting the company's commitment to free expression, YouTube will provide an opportunity for all creators to rejoin the platform if the company terminated their channels for repeated violations of COVID-19 and election integrity policies that are no longer in effect. So essentially, the balance, they say, they're trying to, that COVID-19 was an unprecedented time, and it forced online platforms to, quote, balance freedom of expression with moderation of content, quote, that could result in real world harm. There is nothing. There's nothing. Rich Baris is here. I wasn't going to loop him in on this one, but it's too juicy. Rich, what do you think about that mealy mouth bullshit?
I did my whole show on it today, I'll be honest, Frank, because it's so important. It's so funny. It's 5 years. Did we forget already? First of all, Jim Jordan, this is the second time I've ended up on your list. So, and I'm on these both of these. And the list before about being banned for off of social media platforms with the other organization that partnered with the federal government to remove people who were talking about election fraud. And by the way, I was removed for true information. And then this, which I was constantly getting strikes and threatened to be closed and thrown off of YouTube, as you know, because of our work on the election and because of our work studying, by the way, not just covering studies and going over studies. We had a long-running study on vaccine adverse side effects, and we had a right to report that information, Frank. And one of the videos that was taken down and struck was simply us covering a press conference by the Minister of Health in Great Britain after they conducted a study, and she was going over the results of that study for masking children in public schools. And the mask, number one, didn't prevent anything. And number two, likely, like closing schools, could harm your child's cognitive and social development. So we weren't allowed to talk about not a known scientific consensus, Frank. We were not allowed to ask questions and or challenge or offer up new information about something that should have been one of the biggest scientific debates of our time. And what pisses me off about Jim Jordan is that he had to make it political. It was everything, the Obama administration made them do this. Frank, that's a load of crap. The New York Post was removed from Twitter and lost their access to their own Twitter account before the election even happened. I was removed from Twitter before Joe Biden was even sworn into office. That's continued and got worse under Biden, but he allowed Alphabet, the parent company of Google and obviously YouTube, he allowed them to throw all the blame on the Biden administration and allowed them to sit there and say, we don't like it either. We didn't like it either. And by the way, look over there, squirrel, look at Europe. They're coming for you too. This is insane. That's not how this went, Frank. This is a rewriting of history. And by the way, I want my money. I want my money. I think Tim Pool should get his money. I think Steven Crowder should get his money. There's money, lots of it, that we were not entitled to, that they denied us because they did this to us. And it's like I said this on the show earlier. If you were just a podcaster, they could have crippled you. I had my own business with my own clients, and I subsidized the show. I invested in my own show, and that's how I survived it. But if you were heavily reliant on YouTube member fees, if you were heavily reliant on, stickers and super chats, and you were heavily reliant on advertising or selling someone else's products, they crippled you, Frank. This is a quantitative value that we can put to how much money we lost if we just do a simple average of what we were making in certain months. But they came after me, for instance, hard during an election when I am at the height of my viewership, when I'm at the height of my ability to sell advertising, revenue. I could project a far greater loss than the one that I could even show just from AdSense's dashboard. You know what I mean? Like, this is the only way. I'm not saying this because I'm being money great. This is the only way to prevent this from happening again. A Democrat gets in office and they will go right back to it. The next COVID, they will go right back to it. They need to be hurt in their pocket so badly. They never think to do this again. And one last thing. This one's a fascist. That one's a fascist. There's an actual political and economic definition of fascism. And it is that you have a veneer of a private sector, but in fact, the government tells the private sector about production, capital, labor, you name it. What they can offer, what they can't offer, that was fascism. The definition of it. And the difference, the only thing we should have forced to acknowledge here is that they did it willingly.
Yeah.
And they should pay a huge price for it.
Yeah. I mean, just right here, this quote that unprecedented time. I love that. Listen, it's so much was happening. Nobody knew what way was up. Yeah,
narcissism.
Yeah, exactly. So nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew the real story. So the default position is, we become the shepherds, and you guys have to surrender your civil liberties, and you can't. And we have to curtail. Some Silicon Valley nonce has to curtail your speech because you want to, quote, balance the freedom of expression with the moderation of content that could, quote, result in real world harm. When the only thing that we have learned since then is that teachers unions were making policy. And all
social distancing was bull.
Social distancing was all bullshit, and this has all been published in New York Times and everything now. That there was no scientific basis for 6 feet. There was no scientific basis for people unmasking when they're sitting down in a restaurant and masking when they stand up. There was no scientific basis for anything of it. And so while they improvise, we have to shut our fucking mouths. And I was permanently demonetized in permanently. I just got it back this April, but I was demonetized April of 2020. And, back then, and I had a lot less subscribers, I was making at least 4 times as much in super chats. It really did. It hurts. It hurts a little bit, especially when you're like me and you're just thinking about, okay, that's a power bill, that's a this, and you're just trying to, you're cobbled together something to compete with people. But, since then, so many strikes have come and gone since 2020. I don't know how I have been able to allow them to expire and just kind of hold the line and be easy. There's a lot of shows that I just chose not to put on YouTube, but I've gotten medical misinformation strikes for interviewing top cardiologists like Peter McCullough. A medical misinformation strike for talking to Peter McCullough. Who at YouTube knows better than him about the heart? And then even just my last warning a couple of weeks ago, talking to G. Edward Griffin, he just he mentioned in conversation the work he published in 1974 about apricot pits, and that was it. A warning again, medical misinformation. So the one thing I wonder is when they're going to give anybody details about what these new guidelines actually are, because the problem we've always had is terms of service ambiguity. They've always just been able to shift the goalposts whenever they want.
And that's one of the highlights here, and what, again, pisses me off with how Jim Jordan put this out there. So they admit that we, in fact, did not violate their terms of service. Yet I remember, again, that one episode that I just brought up is a great example. All we did was cover the press conference and then review the study, Frank. That's all we did. And we got a medical misinformation. And when we appealed it, they just ignored it. You know how they rolled. And often it got to the point with us where, at first we would get the strikes and we would say, wow, we just can't even roll on YouTube until this strike falls off. And we were doing that. But then that was happening. The strike would fall off. We'd get another one and they would just ban us from being able to stream for 2 weeks. Yep. Right. And then we were demonetized. We didn't have the ability to do that. So, I mean, and now again, they're coming out with the fact that we didn't violate the terms of service. So, going forward, what does that even mean? Right. So how do we, again, I think we all have to just assume the worst, which is, notice they didn't even respond to the February of 2023 congressional subpoena, Frank. They didn't respond to that one. They responded when they got hit with another subpoena. It's in Jim Jordan's own press release. Why? What were they doing? They were waiting to see if Trump lost the election. They were never going to respond if Democrats did as well as the polling from Baris University and other shitters said they were going to do, which, by the way, these people listen to as if it's gospel. This is all a load of horse shit anyway, and I'm going to tell you why. Our first violation with Google, the first time we were ever targeted by Google, was long before anybody else, to include Alex Jones. Before the 2016 election, I wrote the WordPress Google News plugin. I authored that thing. I taught myself. I learned how to code, folks. I taught myself how to do it. And it was a plugin for sites like the Daily Caller and the Federalist or whoever else. It was like smaller sites that didn't have technical guideline staff. And so it basically wrote itself. And when you published a story, you had to make sure, if you wanted to be indexed by Google News and you wanted to be aggregated and pushed by Google News, you had to comply with general and technical guidelines. And the plugin made it very easy for small business outlets to do that. They loved me. I was one of the first sites to get structured metadata in the header of our website for what was called claim reviews, which we now know to be fact checks. My sin was that I was more accurate than the Nate Silvers and the Larry Sabatos and that Trump won the election. And we were removed from Google without even warning. I had to get a backdoor email from somebody. Later, James O'Keefe hands me freaking documents from a whistleblower saying that we just can't have an alternative guy like this around. And People's Pundit Daily was removed from Google. We never got a fact check. And for people who read it back then, what we did. We covered economic calendar items. It was a data journalism website. Yes, there was an opinion section. We also had liberal opinion columnists. It's incredible. Yeah, and they did that simply because our election site and our polling was more accurate than everybody else in 16, and they did not want us to get another look, and they threw us out.
Well, the real thing there is that you would be in contrast. It's not even just making them look bad. It's more so about
narrative.
I truly believe that these people know that as election cycles are coming up, they understand what their job is to ensure that a specific outcome happens. And perhaps they're not the ones stuffing ballots, but they're the ones that are stuffing the ballots of the mind and keeping perception that, this outcome was preordained. All of the signs pointed in that direction. This person was always going to win. When somebody like you was out there saying no, and you end up being right, you screw up the entire magic show.
The last email that I guess you could call an official email, I got one from my contact at Google News who told me basically he was sorry and he knows exactly, we all know what's happening, and that's it, can't talk to you anymore. And before the election, I got something from one of the people who was working on the Google consumer surveys. And I don't know how good some people's memories are, but they were shut down in mid-October because the Google consumer surveys showed Trump ahead. Some of the leads were like too big, but nevertheless, they showed Trump ahead slightly in Michigan. They showed Trump ahead by a lot in a state like Florida, Iowa, North Carolina. They were doing statewide surveys and they were shut down in the middle of the month. a lot of the team was pissed, and I get an email from one of them that basically says, we've been shut down because we're too favorable to Trump. Hold the line. You're the last person with the balls to keep showing people what the true state of the race is. He's like, I don't know, maybe we're wrong. This is the first time we ever really did this big, but they should have let it go into, they should have let the project run its course. They pulled the plug. Why? Because Schmidt was a friggin' advisor to Hillary Clinton, guys. Come on. Give me a break. And yeah, I mean, so you never saw Google consumer surveys again, Frank. It was gone. It was gone. They had a dashboard. People would go check it every day, and they shut it down. And I still, by the way, I still have that email. Yeah. I still have that. And I also still have an email from a high-level person at Nielsen Analytics who also said, I don't know where the hell these public polls are coming from. Donald Trump's going to win this election. Hold the line, man. Hold the line. That's Nielsen Analytics. And they did, but they felt the pressure. Everybody felt the pressure.
I'm glad I asked you. I'm glad, and just so happened you did a whole show on it today, so you were locked and loaded, ready to go. But when I read, I saw the announcement yesterday, and then I read a little bit into all of the quotes and the statements being made. And I just want to
get away. Frank.
Listen, I know. It's on the face of it, it's ridiculous. But the more you just go back into your memory, and you just take out what kind of an extreme, you just compared what kind of extreme times we were in. It's just insane that some people would even rest on that crutch that, well, there was so much that we didn't know about the situation. Therefore, this is why we had to curtail your right to speak freely, because you could have gotten a lot of people hurt. When the only lies out there were about the inefficiencies of all the alternative treatments out. They're the ones lying about things being horse medicine and not having
shooting bleach.
But I know.
You remember this nonsense?
I know. Frank,
and the thing is, he just said unprecedented, and we kept hearing the terms like novel virus. Frank, that Southeast Asia and other parts of Asia had been dealing with SARS-related viruses and epidemics and outbreaks for years. There was one video that we also got a strike for, which was simply going over, it was 18 or 19 studies on whether or not you should close schools for a SARS-related epidemic. And, they had dealt with it in various types of Asia. Some did it, some didn't do it. Guess what they found? They found what we now know, which is that children are not at risk for COVID, not widespread. Anyone who's got a comorbidity or a serious disease could die of other things too, Frank, that are, nothing to the common kid or, to the common person. The bottom line is they found that it did not pose a risk to kids enough to justify losing with what they found. And we now know this is true. Up to 2/3 of their curriculum for the year. You're making our children stupid. Their cognitive and social abilities go down. You're stealing their scholarships. You're stealing their memories. You're stealing everything that makes us human. And we knew this. They acted as if this was new. No, we had a playbook for SARS. They took it and ripped it up so they could get Donald Trump out of the White House. Can we just cut the shit and call it what it is? They had the playbook. We knew what it was. They ripped it up because they exploited it. They took advantage of your fear out there. They took advantage of everybody's panic, and they wanted to get rid of this guy. And that's what they used it for. And oh, by the way, they compromised the integrity of your elections almost forever, using it as an excuse as well. And you let them. So don't ever let them again. And it pisses me off when a so-called Republican like Jim Jordan comes out and lets them slide like this and then pats himself on the back. You got to be shitting me, Frank. Give me a break.
Yeah.
You're not fooling anybody, Jim.
Well, you said
I want my money.
What can I add to that? Nothing. Oh, I'm sure I could. But I don't know. We'll see where this all goes, if there is any. But I don't know. It's always concerning to me when I see the people I always hope would be clapped in irons are instead giving half-assed limited hangout mea culpas and offering olive branches to people who have been living like, I don't know, outlaws for the last half decade. It's great. Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm glad I was able to get some statements from you on the books, because we're feeling the same way, and you had a lot more to say. Now I want to talk to you about something a little bit more, I don't know, everything that's happening right now. Yeah, it's been done before. I feel like this is an age,
Yes.
a tale as old as time. But I mean, there's nothing more timeless than the afterlife. And I want to talk to you about something a little bit more up in the air. And last night we were talking to Pastor Dave Scarlett. And
I didn't get through it all, and I meant to, and I'm sorry, because I'm like, oh, I gotta watch this, and I got through like 25 minutes, but good.
No, and listen, he's not the only one that we've had on as far as near death experiences go. And I've been waiting a long time to talk to you about the work that you've done in areas of the paranormal, supernatural, especially when it comes to brushes with death and NDE revelations. My question to you is, because I know that you have a lot of personal interests that have brought you outside of the scope of politics. What first prompted you to start collecting data on these types of subjects in the past?
So when it comes to near-death experiences directly, and that's why I can share a lot of the findings themselves, what we found, how we did it, right? But I can tell you this as far as how it was done, and it's the work is not I guess anyone who studies this knows this. The work is almost never finished, right? But I first was approached to do this by somebody who was initially working on a thesis, and the college or the university that they were at, it was shocking to me that they approached me to do it, because this was an institution of faith, right? So, but of course they have science, they have sciences and biology, and biology is not a liberal arts school. But it definitely is a school with a deep history of faith. And what they wanted to know was a little bit more about whether or not we could validate some of the findings that we all know, some of the doctors we've all heard associated with the field of studying near-death experiences. But then also whether or not there was a tremendous difference in the experience based on someone's religion or lack of religion.
Good, great.
And that was the crux of the scope of it. So I had to figure out, well, how do they study these near-death experiences, right? What do we know about them? And it was like altogether somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 months, so this went on for a good deal. And I've always had and you know this, Frank, we've had other conversations, but I've always had an interest in this. So when I was approached to do it, obviously it tickled my fancy. It's like, how many times can you possibly say, do you approve or disapprove of the job so-and-so's doing in whatever? It just gets redundant after a while, so monotonous and frankly, a little bit boring. So I was happy to do this. And as I looked into it more, I think it was at a certain time in my life too, where I guess I was looking for my own answers to certain things. So it was perfect. It was perfect. And we found some really interesting things, and I learned a lot about about near-death experiences, but also we did approach it, and I think this is worth saying. A lot of the other studies that I reviewed before doing it, I said, well, how are we going to go about finding these people? Which was a really big, right?
Yeah.
How are we going to go about finding these people? And what I did find out pretty quick is that a lot of the early researchers obviously were in the medical field. And they might have heard from colleagues about patients that would come back, and have these stories. And eventually, Long, for instance, he would say, you know what? Well, I want to start when we have a patient that's resuscitated. I want to, if it's okay, get the word out. I'd like to start interviewing them. And if I can't get to your place, for instance, your hospital, your workplace, I would like to, kind of devise a methodology we all stand by, and then you can interview them. and send me the research. And so that's how it kind of got started. And I thought that was interesting. But this is decades and decades ago. Okay. So I'm thinking, how am I going to do this now in the real world and in the modern world of survey research? And so I think what's interesting here is that we had, and this is why the study took so long, we had to cast a very, very large net. It was a very expensive study because we had to talk to a lot of people. We approached it as the same way we would approach any poll, only, if you're going to survey the adult population, Frank, and you ask a question, a screener question, like, are you registered and eligible to vote? You're going to get a whole lot more people than if your screener question is, have you ever been resuscitated? Have you ever been brought back to life? It's insane almost, right? So we got a little bit better at targeting people we knew at certain conditions. And by the way, because of this, we found out that there are disparities in the percentages of people who say they had near-death experiences, the overall population, versus people who have had specific conditions, which later we found out others found as well. We just didn't find as big of a discrepancy. It's like some other studies found a lot larger percentages of people, for instance, who had cardiac arrest and then had a near-death experience. We did absolutely find that people who had a cardiac arrest did have a higher level of reporting a near-death experience than someone who had, flatline for another reason. I mean, I'm trying to be, sensitive here in how I say this, but not as big as some of the other research would suggest, So yeah. To give you guys an idea, about 4% of the general population, which I actually thought was rather large, did have a near-death experience in our research. If you had a cardiac arrest, double. So, which was surprising to me. I didn't. And it was interesting. That went down a whole other path. Is there something biological going on that's causing this? Whereas it turns out that's almost impossible to how could I put this? But a skeptic would try to make an argument like this, but you can't, Frank, because some of these other cases that we studied had. There's no doubt. Like some, you can say, all right, maybe there was something going on with the brain there. But in many, many, many of these other cases, there's not.
Okay.
There's no brain activity. It's a wrap.
That's one thing there too. I've had a couple of these situations, and I want to get back to your initial question and really break down faith or lack thereof. But when it comes to, first of all, like I said, insight into that, even if it's just anecdotal about the time spent without either a pulse or without brain activity. For example, we interviewed a couple of really incredible cases over the last year and a half, 2 years. One of them, Dr. Eben Alexander.
He's a fantastic. You interviewed Eben Alexander?
Interviewed him.
What an incredible story.
It is an incredible story, but this is the reason why I wanted to bring it up, because not only is the
definitely no brain activity.
Exactly. Well, for a couple of reasons here. Harvard Medical School neurosurgeon. He's in a coma for 7 days due to bacterial meningitis. Atheist. He's being attended to over that time by colleagues of his who attest he had zero brain function. But skeptics will say, well, if he's not dead, then it must be residual brain activity that accounts for these incredible visions, of which, but this is where I'm coming from again. So if you want to take that and this other thing, what he described over the course of that episode that we had him was essentially what some people would call a new age utopia. Yeah. And it's it's, I guess it's a great leap for somebody who's an atheist and doesn't think that there's anything beyond this. But like I said last night to Pastor Dave, I said, people are really, you can call it confirmation bias if you want, but people want that validation that there is a communal experience, that when you cross the other side, you're seeing Jesus, or you're seeing, something that is, in a Christian standpoint, that is identifiably Christian. And Eben, he painted a paradise for all of us, but it didn't seem very biblical or anything like that. So there's a little bit for you. There's the brain activity thing. How people are disabled for how long, and what is the real sticking factor that makes it more. This was definitely something outside of being generated by the body. And then the other thing is, where is somebody's faith, their foundation in faith? How's that influencing what their experience is? So go ahead.
So we found some really weird findings. There was a Muslim woman who, for instance, saw Jesus. And what do I mean by saw Jesus? All right, this is like, there are, and I'm sure Frank, your audience probably is aware of some of this already, but maybe not. I'm gonna act like they're not. There are some commonalities, and I was limited to sticking to these commonalities in a way to sort of validate whether or not these could be considered more legitimate near-death experiences. And I'm not saying that that's 100% correct, but we did use, once we identified these people, a part of the study did deal with Grayson's scale, right? And for people who don't know, it's 16 part. It's a 16 question part of this overall survey that we did, which was longer than 16 questions, but we did use this to determine commonalities in the experience. And we did that because it seems to be widely accepted at this point. But we didn't, some of the things just didn't make sense unless you're looking at this from a different point of view than how we would with an earthly point of view. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, for instance, the welcoming committee is one of those commonalities. And the welcoming committee for Eben, it was his sister, right? And you know his story.
Yep.
Right? For this woman, it was Jesus. And there was something going on specifically with her life, which, that might account for that. So she was most definitely Muslim. Her husband, who was not a great guy, was also Muslim. But it does seem to me, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Muslim, to me, I can say this was my interpretation of the results because some of it is a little bit weird. I don't think that religion explains whether or not you're going to have somebody who has those common experiences, whether or not they even look like the Christian version of it. Some people's welcoming committee may end up being a relative or an elder that you remember, a loved one of some sort. Others see almost like angelic figures, and others see God himself. But it doesn't mean that they're necessarily contradictory of that person's faith. So, because there's a lot of gray stuff there. There have been people who are not Christian that did say that Christ was their welcoming committee, and then there were people who were Christian who never saw Christ. I think there are more. I'm trying to do this without scaring people a little bit.
No, scare. Go ahead.
There were more important findings, in my opinion. Like you could be a person of faith and end up in a not pleasant experience.
This is what I'm most scared about because I am, yes. I'm a sinner like anybody else, and when I read stories about this of people who have what they believe were dutiful, God-fearing lives, and all of a sudden they saw themselves at the precipice of hell, essentially. Yeah. And I'm like, well, then I'm screwed. What the hell?
I think, and I mean, I can get into my own personal thoughts about this, but let me say this, Frank. Here's one thing that I think might give you a little bit of hope. Even though some of the people that we spoke to were giving us a recounting of their near-death experience that may have happened 15 or 20 years ago, just to look at it, the average age of one of these people was 34 years old. And I'm thinking to myself, that's young. That's really young. And to me, when I'm reading some of them, one was an atheist, was drowning, and at the very last second, he knew he was going to die. At the very last second, he said, because he was raised with a Christian mother, and he just totally rejected it and was a punk his whole life, and he was a bad guy. I mean, he was just not, admittedly, he was not a good dude. And he said as he was dying, in his mind, he was like, he called out to Jesus to help him, and boom, he blacks out, and he ends up in a nicer experience. And that was a person who was an atheist, but he gets kicked back, which is something else that's common. This feeling of you were told you can't get past a certain boundary, like there's literally a veil, and you can't go any further, and that you must go back. Nobody who's having a positive experience ever wants to go back, by the way, never. And then you have so that's a person who wasn't a believer his whole life. And then you have a good person who may have something in their background that they weren't really sorry about. And when you get that life review, it could happen in a good place or it can happen in a bad place. And that's interesting too. The life review is another commonality. Not all life reviews are in like this angelic, the presence of angels in this heavenly environment. They're not. So one of the common things you hear about a lot is the tunnel or the void, where you can't stop it. You're being pulled towards something. Most people feel like they're first seeing the presence of themselves, and then they're a force they cannot fight pulls them up and away. Some go down, and either you go through this dark tunnel and end out in a light, or you go through this dark tunnel, and some of the descriptions are absolutely horrific. I mean, one said that he was what looked like he was falling in dirt with roots everywhere, and the roots were trying to grab him, and then he ends up, and he has his life review in what was everything else but darkness, and he still felt the presence of something, which is another commonality, whether it's good or bad, and he forgot about this thing. Like, he forgot about this thing, Frank. But it was bad, and he was showed how these little things damaged people. This, what he thought was a little thing, and he wasn't really sorry about. It damaged people. And he was showed how it's like you throw a stone in a pond, and there's a ripple effect, and we don't really consider the ripple effect as, going through this life as strongly as we should. And I feel like because he's not alone in these kind of experiences, had he truly been sorry, truly been repentant, it would have been different for him. And why did I bring up the age? Because one of my own hypotheses here is that the reason why they're shown these things and then allowed to go back young is because this loving God that is waiting for hopefully as many of us as possible, he wants us to, knows that we need time, and we that to be better. And so you're kicked back with enough time. There's very, very few, Frank, like older people who have near-death experiences. And it's like it dawned on me reading the results one night and going through different. That the one with the surfer who was drowned, and then this other holy roller guy who thought he was good, had a golden ticket. It dawned on me, like that old expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So it's rare, it can happen, but people who are younger who have these near-death experiences, because God knows that we do need time to change. And if you're worried about it, I actually think that's a good thing. I do. I think that's a good thing, because it's like the people who weren't end up in the unpleasant side of these experiences, which happens about half the time.
That's what I was going to ask next. What's the ratio? If out of everybody that you surveyed, what was the ratio? You're saying it's like half and half, good and bad.
It's basically half and half. See, it's 55-45.
And the other thing, the other thing that you said, 54-46. 54-46?
Yeah.
The other thing that you said that is, it's one thing to say, well, all right, when I was 19, I killed somebody, and I'm not really that sorry because the guy was a punk, or we had beef, or it was dangerous, and maybe whatever. But when you say what could be like a little thing, I don't know what the hell that means. I don't know what the with the I don't know what the hell that means. And because everybody does little things in deed and in thought, we have all these little things, and it's just our nature. So I would pray that we are not set up to fail that badly.
It's not, I mean, it's not little when you realize the consequence, or maybe something very, maybe you're not okay, so I'll be on, okay. Here's one for, I mean, I'll get personal. Here's one for me that after doing this work, I am really concerned about. And it seems stupid and you're just a kid, but it seems like something like this may get me in trouble. When I was younger, I was in high school. I think I probably was somewhere a freshman or a sophomore or something like that. I had this math teacher, and I was always very smart in math, but you know, I was a punk and I had my own little life going on. So math just wasn't a priority for me. And I didn't like her and she didn't like me. And my dad had started to ask her for these weekly progress reports to try to get me under control. And I was like doing better, trying to do better just to like placate her. But I screwed up at the end of the week. And I had plans for the weekend and I wanted to go out. I was chasing girls or something, you know, with friends. And she writes this progress report, letting my father know that on Friday I screwed off, you know. And I'm like, "Ugh, this is going to cook me." I'm like, are you kidding me? I did like really well this entire time. We got into it and I just meant it for a second. Over something so stupid. And by the way, she saw my potential and just didn't want me to squander it. And I know I didn't do this, but it's the intent behind it, I think, Frank, you know? And I looked right at her and I said, "I hope you die." All right? And I meant it, you know, at the time, like as much as a stupid teenage kid could mean it. Monday morning, the flag's flying half mast. On the way home, Miss Bomb slid on black ice and crashed her van and died. And I know I didn't do it, but I made like that statement with like extreme malice in my heart, you know? And that's something, after looking back at some of these other things that people tell me they're shown,
Yeah.
that's something that I worry about. Meanwhile, you could kill somebody in self-defense in war and you're good. I mean, are they happy? No. You know, I'm not trying to say that, but I mean, it could be the little stuff. Guys, maybe you lied to a girl, were in your 20s or something, and this girl had a lot of feelings for you, and you lied just because you wanted to get in her pants, and you get what you want, and then you break up. And by the way, I probably have a lot to answer for this shit too, but you break up with, or you don't even break up with her. You just don't call her anymore. You know?
It's just everything. I think about that mostly just because that's just the way it's socially hookup. I just think about the ramifications of hookup culture in general.
Hookup culture is no good. If you hurt that girl, and then, by the way, the roles could be reversed.
No, everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it to everybody. And it's really,
the roles could definitely be reversed here. I'm just saying, like, I'm literally recounting one of these other ones. If you hurt that girl so bad that you damaged her ability to have a healthy relationship with a man going forward, you have to answer for that. Like, this is, and I'm not saying you're doomed forever, but because of that, but they're going to want you to understand that you just didn't hurt her. You hurt the man that's going to fall in love with her later on. You hurt him. You hurt the kid they may have and try to raise together. Like, the ripple effects are what they show you. And you just have to, you have to think before you do things. Because when Jesus said, Frank, that you have to, love your neighbor, love others as I have loved you, that is what he's talking about. You can't just go through life hurting people. You just can't do it. And I think this has changed my entire perspective of what sin is. I think that sin is by the way, with this, I agree with Evan. I think that sin is almost a force of nature that is a byproduct of God giving us free will. And if we truly want to have a choice, then we have to choose to be bad. Throughout our life, we're going to be putting all sorts of things out into the universe based on our decisions. Your good decisions have to outweigh your bad decisions. That's what I think it all comes down to.
Yeah.
Not that he expects us never to make a bad decision.
No, I can't.
I mean, come on.
I can't imagine that. I can't imagine it. It's too stifling a thought, and it seems almost like that would make creation, all of creation, and what we're doing here seem like a cruel trick.
Just a trick, and that's not what he's trying. Yeah,
exactly. So
I refuse to believe that, but also that's not what comes through. It's like for that particular person, what the damage that he caused with that was so bad that his like shows of piety for like everybody else to see, Frank, not to do real good, simply didn't outweigh the damage that he did to like multi generations of families. Because another thing is that time is different there.
Yeah.
All right. It's almost, and as a matter of fact, let me pull up the question that's asked. Okay. There's several dealing with time. Did time seem to speed up? And the answers that you could pick are, well, you indicate with a number, but neither. First one is everything seemed to be happening all at once. Time seemed to go faster than usual, and then neither is the other. Most people, and I want to say it's 77% or some 78%, said that everything seemed to happen all at once. And that's like, we think of time as linear, and it's not there. Time can go forward, back, left, and right. I mean, side to side. I can't even explain it because it's so difficult for them to explain it to you. But they try, they do their best. But you can see things happen simultaneously. And by the way, you can move at the speed of your thought. So it's like how weird time works. And but when they say move, they don't just say, I see a tree, I want to walk to the tree, I'm there in a second. They can think about a different time and place and move to that time and place. It's insane. It's the scope of it is very hard to grasp.
No, yeah.
But it's the only way for you to truly comprehend what I'm talking about, which is this idea of, there are ripples, and you need the only way to totally grasp how you've impacted, in your impact zone, your life's impact zone, right? And you're making all of these ripples, and you're impacting this person who then goes on to impact that person in your impact zone that is your life. The only way for you to truly grasp whether you've impacted for better or for worse is to be able to see things like that and experience things like that. It's mind-blowing, and it's hard for me to ever convey it the way that they do because I haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
So
no, the reason why this testimony is so incredible, because as I've said in recent shows where something like this will pop up, what we deal with here on the on this plane of light is it's a very, very small radar. I think about everything being on a radar screen, and everything that we know has happened, can happen. All the possibilities are on this tiny little radar screen, and then there's infinity on the outside of the screen. Yeah. And to get these testimonies and to see what becomes a fact pattern, what becomes any kind of a pattern there that would make you consider a little bit more of, just how true a description of the real mechanics of the world on the other side of the veil really is. It's just incredible because you have to imagine it's unfathomable for us. And I wonder about this here too. Did you find in any, I don't know if you have any questions written for this, but you find that paranormal experiences are often linked with fluctuations in societal tranquility and all that stuff? Because that's a tale as old as time as well, that when stress is applied to either a household or a nation, people seem to be more prone to these experiences, whether it be prophetic dreams or out of body experiences, visitations, poltergeist activity.
Yeah.
Have you ever kind of lined that up with the groupings of these things actually happening, and also what's going on in society at large?
Yeah, I think that you have to be, and I'm sure society, happening in the world around people certainly probably has it certainly has an impact on them and where they are in their own journey and in their own, their own headspace at that time. But I do think that the people who do experience these near death experiences, whether they know it or not, Frank, they're in some point in their life where I don't want to say they need it, but because that may be a stupid way to put it, but they're either on the verge of making a really bad decision, or they're, at the end of their rope, some everyone's, and then some, I mean, one woman was just going on an outdoor adventure and to blow off stress, and she had a horrible accident, which is one of the very extreme examples. She was under water in white water for a long time. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense how, unless her story is true, how she could have come back from the dead like that, which is it. And she literally asked God, I've been under the water for so long, I'm done. And by the way, God has a sense of humor in a lot of people, especially if they have a positive experience. Jesus and the presence or the light of God, because it usually is an entity, a light, an all-encompassing light of love. It's like an energy source. That's what God is, how they are explained by a lot of these, how he is explained by a lot of these people. Very rarely do people say, he's like this old white guy who looks like your grandpa, or he looks like, the Sistine Chapel. It's not like that. He's a force that appears to power what looks like a forever city or a civilization that is heaven. And by the way, a lot of people think of this as if it's a physical place. Like we just don't see it. And some even say when they're traveling, they think they traveled because they raise up and they go out. Yes, they went through a tunnel. But one even said he thought he went through a wormhole. Like this was like a physical journey through a wormhole in space, and he ended up on another part in a different universe. He doesn't know, but like this appeared to him to be a physical or metaphysical place. It just didn't seem like some ethereal,
like like the end of that movie Contact.
Yeah. Like Jodie Foster, you're talking about.
Yeah, she's on the beach.
That is very much how he said. Only it wasn't it wasn't a beach. It was and it was a planet. And I mean, it looked like, he said it looked like a planet to him, and he was on this road to the center of whatever was powering this civilization, this afterlife civilization, and that power source was God, and you could hear it. You could hear him in your head, and you could feel him. It was just like all around you, like all around you. You don't need to walk up to him and shake his hand and give him a hug. He envelops you. It's like he is the source. It's incredible to hear. But as far as the other stuff, we didn't really ask, about other, people if they had other experiences or something like that. Like paranormal experiences, like ghosts or something like that, Frank.
Yeah.
But we didn't ask about stuff like that. But I think, just from other stuff that I have seen, I think it's very clear that certain things will open you up to having different experiences, and whether that's stress, loss, grief seems to be a big trigger, or maybe even a near death. This is something I would want to look at a little bit later, but it does seem to be some evidence that after near death experiences, some people have an openness that they didn't have before.
I can
And,
imagine.
yeah,
I
which
can
I
imagine.
can't, I can't speak to anymore beyond that. We just didn't cover it.
Well,
But
that's my next question is, I know that we have midterms coming up next year, and I'm not sure what you're doing with special election season and everything else going on right now, but do you have anything on the to do or the vision
yeah.
board to expand into these areas and to expand on these already established topics in the coming years, because they're so insightful, and they make you really wonder. They're just great conversation starters, and the fact that it's all based on real human experiences that can be repeatable, that is, I think it's of tremendous value, and something that would actually garner a lot of interest across all political persuasions and stuff. So what do you got? You have any at least hopes to do more of this?
Yeah, I do. I mean, this came about, and honestly, it was rather costly because you're doing it's such a big study. I mean, it even costs when you reach people and they're disqualified. They don't qualify for taking the survey. You're still like casting this huge net. But I would love to do that. This was, one of the more fascinating things that I've ever done. And right now, the next thing that's on the docket here is a study about political violence, and I'm having, for obvious reasons, and I'm taking a bit of time with it. I know so many people just want me to go and shoot out and do it, Frank, but I'm trying to do it on a different level than just some snap polling questions about whether or not certain people think this is okay or that's all right. Or I'm trying to make this mean more than that. And just to give people an idea, to do a study like the one we were just talking about again, from start to finish, it was like 4 months, of prep work and everything like that. I would love that. Every year we do our annual tracking, which is always neat, of whether, which is just sightings and UAPs,
Yeah.
UFOs. Because we want to know whether or not belief in extraterrestrial life is increasing, and experiences are increasing, and then there's always the other flip side of that, which is, and by the way, do you think the government's lying about this stuff? There are four questions that we ask every year, but that's not a huge study. It's just always something we throw in there for flavor. And it's
Yep.
one of the more interesting things that we ask every year, which is going to be coming up actually pretty soon. And I know that we did last year's. It was because of the election. We did it off the time we normally do it. So I'm not going to do it for the Christmas poll. So it's got to be kind of soon.
I still to this day I have the only survey, the only poll I've ever been a part of was the Quite Frankly survey for my very own survey we just ran. And by the way, Rich, I'm going to throw one more thing in your lap, before we go. But before we do that, I want to thank you and everybody at home too. I want to thank Krista Roman for generating the questions for this, but I also for the survey we just wrapped up. But Rich, I want to thank you for optimizing and hosting the survey, and to everybody at home that took part in it. We had nearly 1,400 responses. I wanted to get to. We only needed about 1,000, but I wanted to get as many people as possible because the heat map of where people are in the country
Incredible.
is incredible to me, and I wanted as many hits as possible. I gotta say, it's the first time I've collected feedback from this audience in a formal way in all the years I've been broadcasting, and I think I'd like to do it yearly, to be honest, just to keep my finger on the pulse of certain things. It's so invaluable, and thank you for
You should.
thank you for that.
You should. I mean, and I'd be happy to help you with it. And by the way, I can get you the heat map's cool. That's just like the basic one, though. We can actually get a much more detailed map, which is no, don't get scared, folks. It's just that right now it just gives you, especially if their people are clustered in like the tri-state area or something, it doesn't give you, as granular of an idea, as granular a perspective as what the other one that I'm telling you we can do, which I should, and you'll love it. I mean, this is longitude, latitude type stuff. No offense, people don't get scared, but it is better for Frank because Frank it helps him understand the audience better. And I admittedly, I haven't done one on my own audience in at least a year. And anytime we want to make a big change, we'll do it because why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Why wouldn't you? Right? Why wouldn't you just simply ask people what they want instead of telling them? And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm sure you're gonna, figure out what you want to do with it, and what you want to share with people. But it was a really, really fascinating stuff. And just for the listeners out there, I mean, he's gonna listen to it. He's gonna do good with it. And I always feel like, Frank, it really does make the show better, whatever content we're doing better. Um, I wish more people would do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm a believer in it now, and it's I know I have needed it for a long time. So I'll come up with a 2027 survey, no doubt about it, just to see where people's heads are at and to make sure we're on the right track. It's really good. Now, one last thing, I know that you're going to be doing a survey. You just said polling on political violence.
Yeah.
So Nick Shirley is a friend of the show. We interviewed him before he started really getting any attention. Now he really is an amazing presence out there in the world, just showing up. He's fearless, number one. But this was just outside of the UN, and not only he had water.
Are you kidding?
He had never. Not only did he have water dumped on him, but there was this crazy woman that kept showing up and taking her tits out and putting her tits all over him. And now you'll see my top comment over there. Just watch this for a second, because I want to know in your survey how much mental health is going to play a role. Watch this.
Stop! I don't want to see your titties. What? Wait, what is going on?
The white supremacist feels unsafe.
Titties! Whoa!
Titties!
Wow!
Suck my titties! Suck my
Wow.
titties! Suck my titties!
What did he say?
Go.
Hey,
Let's go.
whoa! Get away from me! No, I'm not. I have the right to be here. I have the right to be here. No, I have the right to be here. I have the right to be here. Hey! Wait, why?
Now, Rich.
People are insane, Frank.
And now, as I said in my comment, I said, and I texted him this year too to make sure he saw it. Literally everyone around you, Nick, would have been in an asylum 60 years ago, and I'm not. I'm not joking. That wasn't hyperbole when I said that. This I need. This is my last question for you tonight. Is how do you contend with that very fact that yes, there's an issue with radicalization and violence in the country, but so much of it is steeped in mental illness that at one point was dealt with swiftly and was not allowed to take root and was definitely not enabled. So how do you account for that in your surveys?
I think this is going to be one of the more unfortunate results that we're going to find. And I am just saying that because I think we're dealing with the same kind of the same kind of pathology here, Frank, when you're talking about somebody who is captured by a system, by an institution, whatever it may be, a group of an ideology, and it drives him to do something like, shoot my friend in the neck when he's trying to just debate ideas on a college campus. I think that's basically the same thing as, the trans shooter who goes and shoots up a school or goes and conducts a mass shooting. I think that mass mental illness on various levels, some more extreme than others, is the number one issue in our country. I do. And as a pollster, somebody who his job is to listen to the opinions of Americans, some are funny. Some are, what's the word? I mean, some are just filled with hubris, but anyone who's a public pollster has got to be honest and acknowledge if they still do a lot of the legwork themselves, like I do over here, then it's getting more concerning. And this last election, spent multiple segments in multiple shows trying to prepare, in this case, the American left for a loss, because I knew they were going to lose and they weren't being told they were going to lose. And I was worried how they would react to that, Frank, because of the things that we are hearing. And this is something we're going to, before we deal with it and whatever's causing it, and I'm sure we should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, we have to get to a point where it's unacceptable to use that as a political weapon. And that's the danger we're in right now, is that and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, it's just a reality. One political party, right? One agenda, whatever you want to call it, has been using victimhood and grievance industries to hold on to power because their policies suck. Because they can't, when they get elected, say, see, didn't I make your life better?
Yeah.
And they're now taking more forms of grievance to include what drives people to mental illness. And they're harnessing that and they're using that as a political weapon. And when they do that, this is bound to happen, especially when they dehumanize their political opponents. You know, they paint them as less than human, the other. And by the way, the one that threatens you. They're threatening you. I mean, imagine telling a bunch of people with psychosis or schizophrenia or some paranoid delusions that this person is a threat to you over and over and over and over and over. I mean, Sebastian Gorka's put together, I mean, he works at the NSC. How many times Joe Biden alone on his Twitter feed called Trump and his supporters a threat to people personally. And when you do that, you then you justify violence against these people because they're not doing it because they're bad or they're committing an evil act. They're doing it because they're acting in self-defense in their minds, right?
Yep.
And I know it's diluted, but I mean, we have to realize that first, and then we need to, you know, again, we need to do both, but we need to realize that that's not okay, and we have to start saying it all the time. That's not okay.
Yeah.
And then the second part of it is we have to get to the root of it, which I don't think we don't have our arms around it yet. It's part of the reason why I want to do this study. But I mean, I think it's very clear that there are some people. I think we're going to find some flags, some red flags, like that people who believe this also have certain issues with this, and I think that I don't want to jump too far ahead here, but I really do think, Frank, that going against nature, let me just put this out there, tease this, going against nature and trying to force the humanity itself out of people is bound there. It's bound to have very, very bad consequences. To take away what it means to be a man from a man, to take away what it means to be a woman from a woman, to take away the value of human life. What the hell did you expect?
I know. Yeah, I know that. That's why I had to ask before you left, because I knew this. I know that this is going to be two parts. The message is obviously a very integral part of it. It is it's the code, it's the trigger, but it's the operating systems it's the receivers. What's the condition of the receivers and how do they get that way? You can say crazy things to a well-adjusted, sane person, and they might think they might have an opinion about you and wonder what's going on there. But your message is not going to penetrate, and your message is not going to move them to act. There are just mindless, almost soulless bodies that are roaming the earth right now, just waiting for stimuli to push them into one direction or the other, and it's nuts.
I think, I think you actually, what you just said right there, I mean, it applies to so many different things. I mean, it's the same reason why gangs have appealed to certain people. I mean, everyone's looking for meaning and purpose because we're built this way. Everyone's looking to be a part of something. And when you take away that sense of belonging, when you take away that connectedness that comes with being a social creature, like a human being, and you replace it with the void, so much of this, the material that we deal with and we elevate in importance in society means nothing in here, means nothing truly up here. And it doesn't satisfy us. It doesn't make us whole. And we're just chasing and chasing and chasing for that feeling. That alone is enough to drive somebody mad and to destabilize somebody's place in this society and in this world.
Yeah.
Add that to the confusion of being a young adult, an adolescent and a young adult, and you have a recipe for a mass shooter. I mean, I think that's should be obvious at this point. And I'm a little bit stunned that nobody, and sadly, we have to do this study. The last thing I guess I'll say about it is that we have to do this study because, like so many other things you started off the show talking about, the perversion of the science and the data on this stuff is just getting so bad, Frank. You know, there has to be an honest source looking at this, because you can go to the FBI right now. You could see a big study about trans people and people who are in trans relationships being at greater risk of being victims in domestic violence. Well, when you actually look at the study, Frank, the headline is trans people beat the shit out of their partners more than non-trans people. And yet it was twisted. The interpretation of the data was twisted to make them the victim. It's just incredible. It's incredible, Frank. It's the same thing we got with COVID. It's the same thing we get everywhere else. It's all perverted.
Well, I'm looking forward to how you navigate those waters on the nuts and bolts end of your work coming up. And again, I want to thank you for 2 weeks in a row having you on the show. I look forward to an October roundup, and then hopefully we have some serene, peaceful holiday, some nice times to reflect. That would be nice, wouldn't it? A little bit of time
would be so nice, Frank. I'm looking forward to that, and trying to move forward here in a way that we can finally start to say, hey, this is a positive direction.
Yeah.
And this is why we do it.
And it's peoplespundit.locals.com. I hope everybody goes and supports your work, because it's invaluable. And thank you for bringing a statistical and analytical end to what is really a inspiring and sometimes spooky topic. So have a great night, and all the best to you and the family.
Thanks for having me on again, Frank. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, later.
Take it easy.
Take care. There goes Rich Baris. He's the director. Big data poll. Okay. Well, it's 8:21. We got a lot more out of that than I thought we would, and I'm not complaining. I'm sorry I'm as bright as the surface of the sun tonight. Obviously, my Elgato camera presets just flipped off. These are all saved presets, so there has to be something. I bet you any money I do just a reboot of OBS, and all of a sudden it'll be back to the way it was. But I'm going to take a really quick break just for intermission, and I'm going to bring you guys back on so I can read your super chats and take your calls, because we got a lot on tonight. Oh, and something else, I should say this. Molly from Keto Brainz, she's stopping by in the second half of tomorrow night's show, like the last half hour. Well, guess what? I found out it was her birthday. Tomorrow is her birthday. So she doesn't want me to sing, so maybe I won't sing. But what I did tell her, I insisted that we do something fun to the lead up for tomorrow. I said, just give me something to give people. Come on, let me commemorate you. So for tonight and tomorrow, if you use promo code Molly, MOLLEE, on either ketobrainz.com or for your BPC 157 peptides, I just got 2 more bottles of that in today. The links are in the description below. They're also on the latest story I just shared on Instagram. That's Mind Thy Mitochondria, right in there. You're getting a brass knuckle coffee mug for any purchase that is over $39. So link to both sites are in the episode description. And remember, email me for samples of Keto Brainz if you have not tried it yet. And you always get samples when you sign up as a monthly sponsor, among other things that you get. And I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. So, and also, I don't have anything to give away tonight, just because I didn't want to, suffocate everybody. But the super chats we're about to read, we're going to be entering those names into the giveaway on Friday night for the Electroculture Basket. Great Electroculture Basket. Okay, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to intermission.
to school, back to school, back to school. Well, here goes nothing.
.0269. Let's see what we come up with. All right, Stowstube says just a quick hello to Shotzi and Jay Brits and the Franklies. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Stowstube. Thank you, sir. Car Guys New England says, hi, Frank. Hope you're doing great and having a good week. Great topics tonight. Yeah, you know, there's only so much you can do in one episode, and I wanted to bunch these together. And you know, how can you go wrong when you have a great guest on one night, and you follow it up with a little bit of a statistical side to the reality of what that guest was talking about? Brought to you by Rich Baris. That's going to be great. And of course, we weren't going to be just restrained to that topic, which of course it took us about 25 minutes just to get to it because of Google. I'm glad I brought it up, because you can tell he needed to get it off his chest, although he's already done it and it didn't do too much good for him. Apparently he already did that earlier on in the day. I did not see it, but it did not. I worked them all up again. All right, Jay Britt says, Frank, regarding the lighting levels, you're not getting ready to ascend on us, are you? Please warn us first. No, after tonight's show, I don't think I'm going to be doing any ascending anytime soon. In fact, I've got to chill out and work on some stuff. Listen. Okay. How am I going to, I'm just going to jump right into it. Magnus Arsland. Magnus, thank you so much. Now, I don't know how much money you actually sent me, because it's not a denomination that I recognize, but thank you so much. And I thank you so much. You only sent a question mark. It says, maybe that's just a glitch, but I know that you sent your love and I'm sending it back to you. Here's what I want to bring up with the Etsy witches. I don't know if you heard about this. Now, today we were hearing that Erica Kirk was concerned about these witches on Etsy that had got together to put a curse on her husband, on Charlie Kirk. This was a few weeks ago. This was going around today. I'll get to that in a second. But what it brought me back to was just last October. Do you guys remember we did this last October? Witches report that their spells against Trump are not working. He has a shield. All right? He has a shield up. And we were talking about armor last night. We were talking about the wearing the armor of the Almighty. But this is from dabblers to hardcore practitioners. Witchcraft has been one on the rise in the U.S. in recent years. It actually is, yes. It's become so trendy that there's an entire TikTok hashtag dedicated to witch talk. And it's got billions of views. The occult has gained popularity in the political realm as well, once again on display during this election season. Witchcraft, neo-paganism, it's all the craze, and it's been getting there slowly but surely. The Toronto Star reported on one example in which a group of roughly 100 witches had been gathering by Zoom to attack Trump in the spirit realm. Quote, armed with orange candles, tarot cards, and not so flattering photo of the former president, they cast a spell to block his return to the White House. The final words of their synchronized ritual is, "You're fired," echoed as Trump's image burned to the ground, the Star reported. But that didn't work. An ABC News outlet in Alabama reported about witches writing on Reddit from their forum that the spells won't work like before, with one of them saying she believes it's because many people are praying. Listen to that. She believes it's because many people are praying. Quote, therefore he has a shield, a flimsy one, of course, but a shield nonetheless. I'm trying to figure out a way to create spells that can bypass that, but it is difficult. All right. Okay. We'll just keep going. Now, listen, if you're again from last night, if you're wearing that armor of the Almighty, I truly believe this petulant little LARP will roll right off of you. But people are seeking, the whole point of this is people are seeking these types of intercessions more and more. And whether they're actually joining a proper coven or if they're out of whatever the hell is being conjured inside of them, the hatred, the intent, the focused human intent, they are trying to hex people. Hex people. They're the type, and these are also the type who laugh that, well, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's not them. Because you can tell that some people understand that prayer is nothing to laugh at, nothing to scoff at. You know, there's a lot of people out there who laugh at the idea of prayer all the other days of the week. But here they are dripping hot wax on their nipples to make politicians go away. But remember, we went a little bit further than that. I went into my archives. From 2018, this is when all of the Brooklyn witches got together to try to hex Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And that's when Catholics and exorcists, they responded to the bookstores. It's a Brooklyn bookstore. They responded to it with their own prayers and their own intentions. That was back in 2018. I remember covering it very, very, very closely. It was around the time, it was just a couple of weeks before the midterm elections. I remember we had Jay Myers from Jay Myers Documentaries coming on, and we were talking about what the hell was it? It was the Hunter's Moon. No, that was 2020. It was interesting though. And then if you go back a little bit more, I said, where the hell is that Sally Quinn article that we talked about in like 2017? And I found it. USA Today, September 8th, 2017. Sally Quinn has cast 3 hexes and worries that they work. Sally Quinn. She's a veteran journalist. And these are the people who are in the types of people I believe are not really accurately accounted for who are in the news media. And we always talk about how the news and everything that comes out of those studios is akin to black magic, and they are creating perspective. They're conjuring this stuff out and they're creating reality. So why not have them be fully staffed with alchemists of the darkest magnitude, darkest order? Here are a few things here about people like Sally Quinn. Of course, we all went to church on Sunday at a local Presbyterian church. The household staff we had were all black, and they went to their Baptist church, but they all practiced voodoo. So I had this kind of two-pronged religious upbringing. I would pray, I would say my prayers to God and Jesus every night, but I also believed in all this other stuff. All the women in the family are psychic. I have psychic abilities, as does my sister. I watched the members of the staff often practice voodoo. They would put hexes on people. I saw my mother put hexes on 2 people. They both died. They were 2 people who had hurt me very badly, and she said to both of them, I hope you drop dead, and they did, and I saw her do it. Now, that made me think about what Rich just told us. Not to say that it was really his fault, but there are people out there with true intent who make it a part of their own personal spiritual practices in the world. There is just teenage angst and saying something stupid, but this is something else. When I was in my late 20s, says Sally Quinn, and early 30s, there were 3 people who hurt me in some way or hurt somebody I loved, and so I decided to put a hex on them. I'd never done it before. What I wanted to have happen was for them to feel what I had felt. I didn't mean for them to die. He said, how do you put a hex on somebody? The interviewer at USA Today said, I'm not going to go into detail. There's a sort of a ritual. I light a candle and music and fire and notes and all that kind of thing. I just sort of made it up. This was what I had seen. Unfortunately, bad things happened to these people over the period of 5 years. And then, of course, I love this question down here. Your husband, Ben Bradley, was the editor for the Washington Post, which he led during the Watergate investigation. Does this feel like Watergate talking about does Donald Trump and all of the non-bullshit, they're talking about Russia right now, okay? A complete made-up fabrication, a fabricated reality that all the Coven sisters put together, and then they awarded themselves Pulitzer Prizes for. An actual practicing hexing witch is Ben Bradley's wife, the editor of the Washington Post. These are the people that they married. They marry the witches, actual witches who kill people with their minds, or at least think they do, and kind of just like, yeah, it's just one of those things I can do, and kill people. I got to get it under control, though. I've already killed 3 people. Like, even if she believes that, and she goes about her business believing that that is something she can, has, and reserves the right to do, this is who they all... it's underrepresented. I don't know how we can get a true accounting of it. But that's what I wanted to go back on today when I read that Jezebel, who has since unpublished this article because Charlie Kirk has been murdered, published this. We paid some Etsy witches to curse Charlie Kirk. They even tried to hide the name of the author of this article. So, going to Etsy. Yeah. Here's the last one. In Witches We Trust. Did my Etsy curse work? Time will tell. The forces move in mysterious ways, and the priestess reminds us spell work is a collaboration between the caster, the client, and the universe. A special thank you to the witches in the modern age, and as to you, Mr. Kirk, may the rash come swiftly. They deleted it. Now, again, you can laugh at this all you want, and it is definitely worthy of mockery. But I believe this is just another reason why people would rather you believe that thoughts and prayers don't work on any level to either give somebody strength through a hard time or to actually physically intervene in some unmeasurable way. Because the more we abandon that domain, I think the more prominent their hexes become, because they have least amount of resistance. They have the least amount of resistance. When people they have a robust spiritual life, then there's less that this penetrates. But that's just something I wanted to throw out there. The dabblings continue to dabble. 914-200-0269. We have a little bit of time, so we're going to take your calls. Let's see. Let's take another one. 978 is on the air. Hello, who is this? Hey, what's up? King.
It's me.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm just hanging out here, coasting to the end.
Yeah, great show tonight, I gotta say. Rich is always a good guest. I respect that guy. He's a real good dude. I gotta say that.
I'm glad you like it.
If Rich is listening, and if he ain't, if you could pass that on to him, let him know. I think he's a real good dude. I respect that guy.
So if it was up to you, you'd let him into heaven.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
That'll make him feel good tonight.
But if I could digress a little bit back to the Jamboree, is that all right?
Yeah, please.
So, I know you do your newsletter there, right? And I don't know if you've posted the newsletter there for the Jamboree, but Cheeky Babies, and if you want to, you can add this to the newsletter of the Jamboree. Cheeky Babies, I took a picture of myself in my Speedo in my motel room. So let Frank know if you want to see it. I'll send it to Frank. Frank will let you see it. No word of a lie. And looking pretty good in the Speedo for a 60-year-old dude.
Why the hell am I... Wait, why am I the middleman for this Speedo picture? That I got to pass it along to somebody?
Well, I mean, to put it in the newsletter is what I'm saying. I mean, we don't know these people personally, is what I'm saying. I'm saying if they want to see it, they say, yeah, Frank, put it in the newsletter.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we contact them personally.
Yeah, that'd be good. That would be good. The picture of King in a Speedo that he took at the motel a couple miles down the street. It's going to be it's going to look amazing. It's going to be a centerfold.
Oh, it will. And if I could just say too, sorry to interrupt you. Excuse me. And again, I will not mention names because, again, I don't know people's personal lives and not to try to cause trouble for nobody. But one broad, it was not at the Capitol Theater. It was in studio. Come up to me and she goes, King, what color? I was like, huh? I don't know what she was talking about. And then she like points at my waist and she's like, what color? And I'm thinking, well, what does she mean? I'm white? I don't know. And I says, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And she goes, the Speedo, red, right? And I said, no, it's a black Speedo. And I says, I got it on right now. I really do. I wasn't lying. And she goes, no, I know you wasn't. She didn't ask to see. She was respectful, but she was coy and playful, which I appreciated, and it was fun.
See?
She was like, red, right? Red. And I'm like, huh? And what are you talking about? The Speedo. And I'm like, no, it's black.
See?
So that was fun. That was fun.
They are edgy, but they are respectful, those Frankly ladies.
I respect all of them.
See that? You see that? Did you hear that, everybody? I told you. Well, hey, you know what? This is a great call, and who knows? Maybe there'll have to be maybe there will be a surprise Speedo centerfold one day.
Well, you let me know if there's a demand for it. I am more than willing to provide it.
Good. What I'll do is, and thank you for the call. What I'll do is I'll get Rich Baris on the phone, and I'll say I need a survey quick, and we will poll everybody that we just polled right now on a centerfold. 203. What's going on, neighbor?
Well, Frank, I finally friggin' got through. This is Zeralath. We met at the Jamboree.
Hello, Zeralath. Welcome to the show.
Hey. Hi, anybody that I met at the Jamboree. Dude, this is a cool subject for me to pick up on for you here. You're talking about the curses, and we've emailed a little bit back and forth. And
yes, you are a pagan, right?
I practice magic.
Okay.
I'm not one of the pagans that's got a Christian chip on his shoulder. That was never quite my experience. My experience was not so much about the people, although I see so many horrible people in Christianity at the time. Christians have changed a lot, which is why I love what I see here. I came out of a Catholic background, fell away from that, jumped into an evangelical church because, the Holy Spirit was a lot more fun over there. I didn't have to stare at the dead man on a stick, like all that stuff. Right. But, eventually I went on a whole quest, to find myself and things.
So
now I'm a pagan and I practice magic myself, and I don't do black magic, but I study a little bit of it to understand evil, to understand the enemy, to understand how to protect oneself. So this protection that Trump has, it's really nothing more than the fact that they're casting their magic upon the delusions created by the straw man of the projection of their idea of Trump. So backlash. The curses are backlashing.
That's an interesting perspective, because they don't even know how to properly define Donald Trump. They are casting a curse on an imaginary person.
Yes, because there is no harm in intent, and execution. Mistakes happen, right? We've seen some stuff, some ICE agents out of line and things, but overall, what's going on, there's this straightforward thing about it. So he's not doing on a corrupt level what the prior politicians have done, right? Like, I firmly believe that when Hillary Clinton was doing her thing and she was like tripping up on her words, coughing up phlegm and stuff, I personally think she had a voodoo curse on her from someone getting revenge instead of forgiveness on her for what she did exploiting Haiti, right? So you could take that. I very strongly believe that she was under a voodoo curse as punishment. I've heard rumors from Hollywood that The Serpent and the Rainbow was a movie based on the Clintons taking a trip to Haiti. That's a rumor. That's like a legit rumor about that film, especially the way they cast those two characters. But yeah, no, it's so a curse is mostly it's a personal thing. You've been personally wronged, right? Because the universe, God's laws are paying attention, and that's what's up. Me, almost all of my magic that I bother to do is just for healing, for power, personal power, that it's what I carry with me, right? It's for my strength, my health, my speed, my wit, my strength of character, my goodwill towards men, my honor, and things like this. Pagans think of good and evil differently, and there's different kinds of pagans. I talk to liberal pagans, you know, like on the woke side sometimes, and there are certain realms of the conversation I don't go, right? I lay back a little bit on bloodline talk because they're conditioned from their liberalism to think that I'm trying to imply certain things that I am not, or the worst intentions of what I mean by it. Right, I'm a very complicated guy.
No.
I'm more likely to offend at first.
No, you know, it is it'll be good to have your opinion on things as they come out like this. Here's one last question before I start wrapping up the show, though. Just off the top of your head, because I see a lot of sense in what you're saying there about another reason why these attempts to spiritually attack somebody like Donald Trump and anybody like him who has really just this veneer of projection. I mean, maybe the real shield is that veneer of projection there. They can't get past the projection. But what you said there, it made me wonder about what you may see in the greater scheme of things that happens, whether in D.C. or around the world, whether it is a combination of financial fuckery, or if it's the wars or anything going on television, narrative building, whatever the hell it is. When do you know that something that's happening right now is not just a political move that's playing out, but that there is a magical component to it?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of magical components going on with all of these things, right? Conspiracy esotericists have noticed that the position on the floor map for the kill box for our late champion, Mr. Kirk, was the centerpiece of a menorah design. So what is the magical symbolism in extinguishing the center flame of a menorah? That's an example of magic going on. There's what's happening behind the scenes, and then there is what they want you to know about what's happening behind the scenes. This is why I take great offense when people say that people didn't die in situations. You know, Alex Jones gets all this heat about Sandy Hook. You know who deserves that fucking heat? Me, in 2012 on Revolution Radio. Steve Travesty was my name then on Revolution Radio. Friends of Sean David Morton. Love the man. Rest in peace. I'm sure he's already reincarnated and laughing about the whole fucking thing. But my point is that we're all going to be okay if we have that greater strong sense of self and awareness in the world, right? I'm a firm believer in this idea of the informed field and the way that reality is projected. You know, all of us having that fractal piece of the God spark. I'm not a lot of pagans talk like this because I also learned a lot of truths from exploring New Age. And so I'm much more different than a pagan because I still believe in something I call the higher force, which is what I believe all Christians that are true good men of character and women of character is really what they think Jehovah is, right? Because I see their heart, and then the struggle, knowing the horrible things done in the name of God in the Old Testament and the juxtaposition, right? And so that's just how I am on my journey and why I can fill with anybody from any walk of life.
Well, you know what? You've slipped in on the phone lines tonight in a time when we were wrapping up the show, and you contributed some really nice tidbits. And I'm sure that anytime you do get through, there's going to be a whole bunch of debate in the chat room about your central thesis, and also how legitimate your worldview is. And I think that's what makes a good talk show, makes for a good talk show. So thank you for calling in, sir.
Oh, I live by it. Can I say my channel?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. If you want to take a peek at my madness and some of my genius, go to Zeralath Eternal. You've seen me in the chat room. ZERILATH space ETERNAL. Zeralath Eternal. And I do a lot of drive streams, and I like to do some book readings from time to time.
Well, there you go. Hopefully you get a couple of people stop by, say hello, and thanks for the call, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
See you later, Luke. Bye.
Be well. Have a wonderful September evening. See? A lot of different people in the audience. That makes a lot. It makes a lot of sense. There's obviously going to be a lot of foundational things that we're just not jiving with. But that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad to have that perspective. I really am. I'm glad to have that perspective. Because there is the power of prayer, and there is the protective power of prayer that I think especially we Christians on earth can provide and bring and envelop someone in, or anybody that is praying and truly in their heart is, just transferring that love and that let's say that I don't know. It's just you can call it whatever the hell you want, I guess. But it's another thing to say that if you're going to wage war on somebody spiritually, you have to know exactly what the target is. Well, what if you don't know how to define the target because you have been given bad intelligence? What if you have an understanding of what the target looks like, but your understanding of who the target actually is doesn't match them in a cosmic sense, like doesn't actually match the signature, the actual signature of the person, because you only have this understanding because somebody in the media told you some bullshit. And then a few years ago, you were watching this guy's, television shows or something like that. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to consider. Anyway, it's 8:57, and I am so happy that you guys have been with me tonight. Tomorrow's going to be a good one. I don't know where the hell we're going to have the time to put everything in, but we have a really interesting guest in the first half. Jay Gulanello will be in, but we'll have a really interesting guest, Sam Miller, on in the first half, who has really severe, it's a case of scoliosis. But you should see how he, through tension, is working through this thing to actually reform his fascia and all that stuff. So I want to talk to him about it and play some videos for you that are going to blow your mind. And then we'll have a little bit of time for this and that and taking calls and all that until we'll have it'll be good. There'll probably be a third hour or something close to it tomorrow night, which we're about to do hour after hours right now. And last night we had a really great time. In extra innings, we had a really great time. We were just talking about, I said, can you imagine if we can all just blink out of here and go to, hey, meet me at the food court at the Galleria. It's 1990. Where are you guys going? If however many of us are at the food court, at the Galleria, and you have all those classic Galleria food court places, where are you going? What are you getting? And when we come back to sit down, I want to see what everybody's got. We got the gyro place. We're talking about, McDonald's from 40 years ago. Then there's, of course, what was it? What was the orange one again? Orange Julius? I said, what the hell is Orange Julius? I never had one before, anything. And everybody told me about Orange Julius. I had to go look around for one, and there's one in North Jersey somewhere. I never had Orange Julius before. We were talking about egg creams. We were talking about all types of shit. It was so good. I have something similar to that tonight for the bonus 25 minutes that are going to be live at the end of the end credits. Don't miss out on it. We have some really fun stuff. I'm just reading the general chat. Sometimes we take calls. Last night I got a call from Lauren. That was nice. She called in to talk about Auntie Annie's pretzels. Auntie Annie's pretzels. There's David's cookies or something like that. Cinnabon. We were going through them all, man. These are the only conversations that matter. Really are. All right, over on Rumble, Tommy Jekyll says Rich was lit on this stream this evening about the money Google's owes any number of content providers. I just think about that. That is 5 years, from April of 2020 to April of 2025. I know what I was making approximately every month in 2020. Then again, it was the only place people were watching. It was the only way that people can contribute to the show other than becoming a sponsor on Patreon, because we only had Patreon at that time. It was around 2020 into 2021 where we were like, holy shit, we need to remake the world right now. And thankfully we had Subscribestar that popped up. Everybody was able to start doing things outside of that. We found several options to do super chats without YouTube. But it was crazy, man. Living like renegades. Outlaws, even. Same thing. Thank you, Tommy. The Right Stuff says, Frank, I can't wait for the October broadcast of paranormal and extraterrestrial encounters, and hopefully this time around I can share my experience while flying for the Navy. Big respect. The Right Stuff, you got to. First of all, put it as a safety. Put it into the forum thread that I just put up there. Spooky, unexplained, everything, please. I love that stuff. I want to talk about haunted flying stories. Ghosts of the air. Got to bring on all my pilot friends for that. Let's see, what else do we have? Grandma Grateful says, I'm going to need me a Matt shirt for show. I hope he likes it. Got all this great stuff we're doing. And I hope he likes it. That's all, Like, Matt, come on, we got shirts that are based on you. People love you. This is why I'm saying become a sponsor of the show, because one of the things that I asked Matt, I said, Matt, I've got some fundraising goals for 2026. I have to inspire not only old sponsors maybe to bump their sponsorship up a little bit, but the more important thing is I got to get new people on, and I got to really list all the things that they're getting, universal things that they get as a sponsor, but also the things that we can unlock along the way. And one of the things I want to unlock is guaranteeing Matt some sort of a budget item for him so that he can be here at a set time once a week. And then maybe some gaming streams on the side that we can, at any time the town calls him and says, hey, we need you to paint double yellow lines on Main Street. He doesn't have to take it. Stuff like that. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. But I'm trying to make it like fun for him. Like, come on, it's fun. People want to hang out with you. We got shirts that are being made. I don't know. Anyway, that's part of it. Ghetto Boy says, blessings to the family, Frank. Thank you, Ghetto. Thank you so much. Cascades for Verbo says, love to you all. Thank you, Cascades. Miss Day Dawn says, edgy and respectful, frankly, right here. It was wonderful to meet you, King. Is that the one? Miss Day Dawn, was she the one that asked King what color his Speedos were? Cascades for Verbo says bitches. Well, thank you. Okay. King has Frank looking like the judge that had to look at the pics of Bridget Macron's proof. Delona says, here is for the kitty for Matt. The actual kitty cat. Thank you, Delona. Wow. That's just so nice of you. Let's see. 123 SKG says, I'm watching on YouTube and pilled. Well, I got to talk to you guys about YouTube on Monday because I was just told something. I know it's 9:04. I'll just do this later on. The Sentinel says, great show. We always enjoy Rich when he's your guest. Me too. Safety net. Putting my name into the hat again for the basket. Am I too late? No, not at all. Not at all. The drawing is on Friday. I'm doing a special broadcast, an extra broadcast on Friday because this would be my week off that I premiere something in its place. But if I'm going to be gone next week, I'm just going to double up because I'll miss y'all, even though we'll be doing coffee streams from the mountain. That's it for tonight. Thanks again to Rich Baris. Thank you all so much. And I will see you tomorrow night. It's going to be a packed one. Don't miss it, 7 o'clock. Tell all your friends. Tell your enemies too. Frank, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me, bro.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and I just want to say that in the description of the episode, there are the 2 links from Molly's companies. That is Keto Brainz and also the Wolverine peptide that you should all look into. And everything there, use promo code Molly, MOLLEE, and you're probably going to get a mug sent your way. That's it. Check out the chat room for the pilled link. It's coming your way now.